Alright guys, last night was a big night for MMA with the UFC and Bellator both putting on great events, and while I wasn't planning on doing a recap of any of the action last night, they just left me with too much to talk about. So getting right into it, over at UFC Fight Night 166 we saw Curtis Blaydes get an impressive TKO finish over Junior Dos Santos in the second round of the fight. At the beginning of the fight I was getting a little bit frustrated with Curtis Blaydes. I saw him winning this fight, but I thought the approach he was going to take was to follow Cain Velasquez's game plan against Junior Dos Santos, grabbing him in the clinch, pushing him up against the fence, and looking to dirty box him to get a decision win. But what we saw was Curtis Blaydes looking to come in and land takedowns, in which Junior Santos easily brushed off. And I thought he was keeping too much distance in between him and JDS, where JDS was able to land the strikes and was able to try to set up the uppercut. Curtis Blaydes was able to push him up against the fence at one point. However, he landed a low blow, which caused the referee to stop the action and separate him. And again, Curtis Blaydes went right back to playing JDS's game. Now, in the second round, we saw Curtis Blaydes actually striking back and actually landing. And the more and more he landed, the more and more it seemed to wear on JDS. Now, while I initially thought that Curtis Blaydes attempting a strike with JDS would be a horrible idea, it appeared that he was able to use the threat of the takedown to cause JDS to lower his guard and open himself up for the strikes up top. This turned out to work right in Curtis Blaydes' favor. Curtis Blaydes lands right on the chin of JDS, sends him stumbling back to the fence, and he unleashes a flurry that causes the referee to stop the fight. Again, huge win for Curtis Blaydes, and one that keeps him steady on his path to getting that title shot he's been looking for. Now, as far as where he goes next, Curtis Blaydes better be praying that Jairzinho Rozenstruik is able to get Francis Ngannou out of the title picture, because Curtis Blaydes has 2 losses to Francis Ngannou, and as long as Francis Ngannou is winning, it appears that Curtis Blaydes is going to be waiting a while before he can even think about getting a title shot. Now, in the meantime, I think the perfect opponent for him at the moment would be Alexander Volkov. Alexander Volkov is coming off a decision win over Greg Hardy and is another one of the top heavyweights. It would be a huge opportunity for Volkov to get himself in the title picture, and while it would be a risk for Curtis Blaydes, I really don't see any other option for Curtis Blaydes at the moment other than just sitting out and waiting. There's no telling when Walt Harris is going to get back into action, but with everything he's been through as of late, I think he needs to take as much time as he can off as possible. Regardless of where Curtis Blaydes goes from here, Curtis Blaydes has made me a fan before this fight, and this win right here just impresses me all that much more, and I personally can't wait to see him in action again. Now, in the co-main event of this one, Michael Chiesa gets probably the best win of his career against Raphael dos Anjos, using his grappling to get a decision win, but it wasn't without a fight. In the first round, Michael Chiesa was able to use his size, his wrestling, and his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to take RDA to the mat, transition to back control, and attempt to get a rear naked choke. But RDA, being the black belt that he is, and a very good grappler in his own right, was able to transition and escape out. In the second, RDA was able to keep the majority of the round on the feet and was able to land some vicious calf kicks that appeared to slow Michael Chiesa down. Michael Chiesa also appeared to be tiring. However, in the third, Chiesa again able to use the size and wrestling to land the takedown again and control RDA from top position for the majority of the round, earning him the victory on all judges' scorecards. Now, this was a big win for Michael Chiesa, and one that moved him further up the ranks of the welterweight division. And in the post-fight interview, he makes a big call out, challenging the former title contender Colby Chaos Covington. Now, while this certainly was an impressive win for Michael Chiesa, in my most honest opinion, he should consider slowing his roll a little bit. Michael Chiesa has looked impressive since moving up to 170, but Colby Covington is a whole different animal than I would say anybody he's faced as of yet. Colby Covington is not a war-torn veteran like Carlos Condit. He's not an undersized welterweight like Diego Sanchez or Raphael dos Anjos, and he's also not somebody that's going to backpedal and allow Michael Chiesa to overwhelm and overpower him. Colby Covington's going to meet him right in the middle and look to match him strength for strength and skill for skill in the wrestling department, and that's just a match I don't see Michael Chiesa winning. All respect to the man. On top of all that, I'm sure Colby Covington has no problem talking about Michael Chiesa's mom. And seeing how much emotion Michael Chiesa has shown in the past, I don't think that's going to go too well for him. So again, in my humble opinion, all respect to Michael Chiesa, but I think he needs to sharpen up his striking a bit, work on his cardio, and take on anybody else in the top 10 before fighting somebody that high ranked, especially Colby Covington. But regardless, it was an impressive win, and I congratulate him for it. Alright, now over at Bellator 238, we saw Cris Cyborg adding another title to her illustrious career, stopping Julia Budd in the 4th round of the fight by TKO. Now, I, just as most of us, did predict Cris Cyborg to win this fight. However, I was afraid that she may come into the fight over-aggressive as she did in her fight with Amanda Nunes and Felicia Spencer. And finding a striker like Julia Budd, I didn't think that would be a good idea. However, it turned out to be exactly what she needed to do in this fight. Cyborg came in very aggressive, looked to land heavy shots as early as possible, and Budd looking to tie Cyborg up in the clinch, push her up against the fence, and control her. We saw Cyborg struggling a little bit in the first, appearing to be a bit overwhelmed by Julia Budd's Budd's strength. However, Cyborg was able to land a takedown of her own, and toward the end of that round, able to knock Julia Budd down with a straight right. In the second and third, Cyborg continued to press forward, throwing vicious combinations at Budd, with Budd continuing to tie Cyborg up in the clinch. However, she was no longer able to control Cyborg. Cyborg was able to break away easier and easier as the fight went on, and Budd appeared to be really feeling the effects of the strikes. Cyborg was also able to land some takedowns and some ground and pound, and overall, she appeared to be taking complete control of every aspect of this fight. In the fourth round, Cyborg unloaded a flurry on Budd, which sent her stumbling back to the fence, and she completely overwhelmed her with strikes, forcing the referee to stop the action and dethroning Julia Budd, making her the new Bellator Women's Featherweight Champion. Cris Cyborg has now held titles in 3 major MMA promotions, being Strikeforce, UFC, and now Bellator, further making a case for the greatest women's MMA fighter of all time. Now, it's hard to solidify her as that, with Amanda Nunes holding a TKO victory over her, and in my opinion, it's a shame that we may never see that rematch happen. However, Cyborg appears to be doing exactly what's best for her in her career, and she seems to be satisfied with the way Bellator is treating her. Now, I have no idea where she goes next from here, because I have no idea what the rankings are in Bellator's women's featherweight division, but I could only imagine now that the division will be a showcase for Cyborg's talents, much like it was in the UFC before Amanda Nunes came along. Perhaps Scott Coker has some cross-promotion in mind. I'm not sure what the women's division looks like in Ryzen, but regardless, Cyborg has already solidified herself as a legend in the sport of MMA, and this Bellator title only adds to her legacy. Again, guys, this was a great night of fights from both promotions, and with the year just starting off, we have a lot to look forward to in the coming months, and I can't wait to see how everything plays out. Again, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all again in the next one.
Were there any feelings and like flashbacks to the night you lost your title? What was it like?
You know, when I lost that title, I get out the cage. I was no feel sad. I speak it real. I feel like something get out my back, and I walk over there and I did interview. I know all the wall has the right things, and I remember every single part. And then I did the interview. I was not sad. I feel like everything happened reason. If I not lost that belt that day, I was not here now champion Bellator. And here I'm happy. That I was not happy. I was working. I feel as a slave. And then I was not happy. And here I'm happy. It's something I choose to be.
Chris.